keep track of the Q&A and kind of looking at chat as well, but yeah, I won't be doing any actual presentation.
All right. Well, the reason I was asking was just I didn't know if you guys already did have what we have at the board kind of deemed as like the moderator, which that may be different from you, Matthew, but just the one who does the house cleaning rules in the very beginning.
Yes.
Okay, cool. I was just going to say that I do have a script for that if you guys would like that done as well. So just here for support.
Yeah, we definitely need that done. Yeah.
Yeah, if you could do that, Evan, that would be amazing.
And this is going to be the crushing ableism, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. Just one moment.
Alicia, did that fix the captioning?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Great. And Kristen, did you get the slides?
I did. They are ready to go.
Great. You want to just share them real quickly to be sure that everything works?
Sure.
Excuse me. Cool. All right. Definitely do that for you guys.
Perfect. Thank you.
That's good. And then if you want to advance a couple slides to where the panel is listed.
Why is it showing? Oh, I'm on the wrong screen. Hang on.
Oh, what's up, Sierra? I didn't know if you were going to be on this or not.
I'm not. I was just jumping
There we
on.
go.
I just wanted to make sure if those videos were being shown that whoever's doing the screen share, it looks like
Why does it keep? It's sharing the wrong screen. Let me try again.
We got to do the
Yeah.
screen share with audio, right, Sierra?
yeah,
sure
I just
that-
wanted to make sure that button got pushed.
And we
Kristen.
originally didn't have videos, so that's why.
I'm not sure why that's keeps sharing the wrong screen.
Well, Kristen, really quick, when you go to screen share, have you selected that button in the bottom left-hand corner?
That says share.
Says
So no, see, you're gonna pull up the share screen box. And then when that box comes up and it asks you like where you want to share, at the bottom left-hand corner, it will, there's a little box you can click on and it says share audio or
Optimize for video. Yeah, optimize your video for audio or something.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I've got both of those checked. But
perfect.
when I try to share screen 2, I keep sharing screen 1.
Here, just a second.
We see it.
I'm seeing the
Oh, do you
slides.
see it?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it's just my view. It's a little weird.
Do you
But it
want
looks-
to test that video out really quick?
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you can go to one of the videos, that'd be great.
First one is in the introduction right there. Ayanda Nachis.
I couldn't get the videos to play earlier, so that's why I was wondering.
It doesn't. Do I just click on her picture? Where does it show the video?
Okay, yours is not showing it. Matthew, you're going to have to run them.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, when I opened it up earlier, the videos
Okay, when
wouldn't
you-
play on my computer.
When you open up PowerPoint, it asks you to enable the features. There's a yellow bar that comes across the top of PowerPoint. And unless you have activated that feature, it won't allow the
So
the
enable
video to
content
play.
right there.
Enable content, yeah. Yeah.
So go back down to PowerPoint, Kristen.
You're there.
Yeah.
Click
See right underneath the orange bar for the PowerPoint, there's like a very
Yeah.
faint yellow one.
Yeah, and you see it all the way to the right, enable content.
Okay.
There, and now you see there's an arrow on Ayanda's screenshot.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Click on that, it should play directly on that slide.
But when I go to share, it won't do it.
Yeah, when you go full screen, that's weird.
Yeah, it disappears.
Do you mind if I try?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you, I'm gonna share screen, and then I'm going to share. I'm going to share sound and share that. And then what screen do I need to use? Is it just the power? I'll use this one. I guess that's the right one. Why?
Yeah, number 5.
Hold on.
Yeah, every screen's different.
This has been not a good day.
I want to cry. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's my computer's telling me I need something. Sorry.
In the worst case scenario, I would say, Kristen, you could probably go ahead and share your screen, and then the video, you could go out of presentation mode if it will show in that viewpoint.
Right.
It's not the,
You'll see this.
see if you can play it like that. Or is this you, Matthew?
Yeah, this is me. It wants to play.
Just have a really slow internet connection.
I'm gonna close everything that's not the.
Hi, my name is Iana Nachi. I live in West Virginia.
Yeah, we can hear it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and run everything. I might be a little frantic during this presentation, so just please bear with me. But happy to do it.
I can jabber on if need be. You know, I like a bear time.
Yes, you're like me in that regard, Rachel, which is a blessing and a curse.
Indeed.
All right, and is Emily in?
Matthew, I'll keep it up on my side too, so it's ready if something goes sideways.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put everybody on here.
Okay, Emily is here.
Okay. Then I'm gonna go. Hey, Emily. I'm gonna go.
So Emily, we've got a slight change. Luke could not be here, so Matthew is going to moderate. Okay, and we've got in the slide deck, I've embedded Ayanda's little video clips that we recorded the other day.
Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Just make sure. Oh, let me see what I gotta do. Okay. Cool, cool. So guys, when y'all are ready to go to the next slide, just tell me next slide. I think I know, but just in case. All right, we're good. Sierra and everybody, we're ready. You can let people in whenever.
So should we should all stop our video, correct, and mute ourselves?
Turn.
Okay, are we ready?
I'm trying to figure out how to turn my. Oh wait, here we go.
Matthew, are you ready to go?
Yes, we're good. So we're all good. So if y'all could do your like real introduction and all the housekeeping, that would be great.
Definitely. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Evan Shockley, and one of the April board members, and just going to be doing some of the housekeeping items before we get started on today's workshop, Crushing Ableism. First, when you scroll over the screen, a menu bar pops up. Depending on what device you are on, you can find that menu bar at the top or at the bottom of the screen. This is where you will find the closed captioning for today's session. You can view the captioning by selecting the CC tab on the menu bar. For sign language interpreting, you can find the interpreter on the screen with the name Interpreter Bethany or Interpreter Gaborski. If you are only able to see the speaker, make sure you are in gallery view so you can see interpreter and the presentation at the same time. You can find the option to change the view at the top of your screen under a tab for View. If you would like to see the interpreter larger, you can choose to pin them, and you can go to the top right-hand corner of the interpreter square and select the 3 little small dots, and that will give you the option to pin them. You can make them larger by pinning and then selecting speaker view if you want them even larger. If you have technical issues, please use the chat feature. You can find the word bubble in that same menu bar mentioned above. Once that is selected, that will allow you to follow along with the chat or add in your own comments. If you would like to turn the chat feature off, if you are using a screen reader, you can do that by pressing Alt-H. To ask a question or make a comment, you can also select the hand option on the menu bar, and that allows us to know you have a question. For those of you on the phone today or using keystrokes, we ask that you push *9 or Alt-Y on your keypad to raise your hand. We will then let you know when you can unmute, and you can select the unmute option or Alt-A if using keystrokes. Remember, if you join into the conversation, please keep the background noise to a minimum to be respectful to all, and so that we can hear you clearly and make an accurate interpretation of what you're saying. So with that, I will pass it on to our presenters today for Crushing Ableism.
Oh no, where's my thing? Oops, shoot. Thank you so much. Sorry about that, everyone. Having a little bit of technical problems today. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matthew Shapiro, and I'm one of the adult allies for youth as self-advocates. I am not going to be the star of the show today. You will be hearing from 3 of our amazing youth on our board. And so I will just be serving kind of as moderator and helping them out through today's program. So with that being said, a little bit of the history about YASA. YASA is a national grassroots project of Family Voices, which was created in 1999 and run by and for youth with disabilities. They were formerly known as Kids as Self-Advocates, but over the last couple of years, we have transitioned to youth as self-advocates. Our mission is to, YASA was created by youth with disabilities for youth to educate society about issues concerning youth. We promote self-advocacy and self-determination by creating support networks for all youth with disabilities in our society. Our belief is, we believe that young people with disabilities should have control over their independence and futures. We have youth from all across the country. Right now, we are mainly covered by both coasts. We are certainly looking for youth to cover the middle of our great country, and we are currently in a recruitment cycle. So we definitely, if you know youth that would be interested in being part of this amazing organization, we would love to have them consider applying. And you can do that at familyvoices.com/YASA. And you can find our application there. But that is enough from me. I want to now turn it over to our amazing 3 youth presenters. And I will say, unfortunately, Luke Byram was not able to join us today, so that's why I'm filling in as moderator. But I want to turn it over to Emily to get us started with intros. Emily, over to you.
Hi, my name is Emily Cowan. I live in Fairfield, Connecticut. I go to Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut. I'm a part of the marketing committee for YASA. I joined YASA because I'm passionate about advocating for those who have disabilities. My favorite animal are monkeys.
Wonderful. Thanks, Emily. That's awesome. I didn't know that about monkeys. One of the other things I forgot to mention before we got started is our other youth, Ayanda, was planning on being here with us today, but she had a class commitment. And so she made all of her comments in video. So I'll be playing videos of her responses to our questions throughout the program. So I just want to share her intro video for you all.
Hi, my name is Iana Nachi. I live in West Virginia. I am currently majoring in political science at Marshall University. I am currently a member of the Young Adult Advisory Panel, which is part of the AAP Telehealth Project. I am a YASA board member and organizational committee member. I joined YASA because I believe that it is important for me to advocate for those who may not be able to advocate for themselves. And my favorite color is purple.
Rachel, you're up.
Hi, my name is Rachel Zanoni. I live in Maryland. I'm on the organizational committee of YASA. I joined Youth as Self-Advocates because I wanted to meet more disabled people and advocate for disability justice. I am also a 2021 Dinah Cohen Dream Fellow with the National Disability Mentoring Coalition. Stay tuned with Partners for Youth with Disabilities if you want to learn more about that. That'll be more at the end of the year. I also work at, I serve as an AmeriCorps member, public ally with Baltimore City Public Schools working in youth engagement. And I like making things out of fabric.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. And so the way we're going to have this program work today, it would help if I turn my camera back on, is I have a list of questions that I'm going to ask all of our wonderful panelists, and they will give us some great answers. So first, let me see. Oh,
And Matthew will be going through these slides and everyone is taking a turn on reading them.
go ahead. Go ahead. So yeah, what is ableism? Marcia, did you want me to go through these again? I can't remember. I'm sorry.
No, they're assigned to each speaker. So
That's what I
one of
thought.
them was for Luke. This might have been Luke's. I don't recall.
Gotcha. I don't have the notes page in front of
Emily.
me. Emily, go ahead.
In preparation for this presentation, we reviewed a lot of definitions of ableism. Yes, we collectively agreed that we like this one from T. L. Lewis the best because it is so inclusive. I am going to share it with you now. A system that places value on people's bodies and minds based on societal, constructed ideas of normality, intelligence, excellence, desirability, and productivity. These constructed ideas are deeply rooted in anti-Blackness, eugenics, misogyny, colonialism, imperialism, and capitalism. This form of systematic oppression leads to people in society determining who is valuable and worthy based on a person's language, appearance, religion, and or their ability to satisfactorily produce/reproduce, excel, quote unquote, behave. You don't necessarily have to be disabled to experience ableism.
So what does ableism look like? We're going to go to the next slide. We compiled a list of a few different ways that ableism can show up. It can come across in lots of different ways. And this is what we found was the most common. Assuming people with disabilities need to be fixed. Being out of compliance with disability rights laws like the Americans with Disabilities Act. Failing to incorporate accessibility into building design plans. Building inaccessible websites and other digital material. Mocking with people with disabilities and mocking their behaviors or ignoring them outright. Next slide. Matthew.
Yep, I'm coming. So everyday ableism is where you hold meetings in inaccessible locations. You frame disability as either a tragic or super inspirational situation, either in the news or in entertainment or in social media. And then having another example is having a non-disabled actor play a disabled character in a movie or a TV show.
We often experience ableism through comments and actions in public settings like these. People ask us, "Can I pray for you?" Some people still use the R word and say things like, "That's so retarded," and "He's acting so bipolar today." Then there are some people who don't know us who ask really personal questions like, "How did you become disabled? Was it an accident?" And in public places, we are often stared at by adults and children.
Okay. This one's mine again. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. So other comments and actions that could happen in public is people saying that just because I don't look disabled doesn't necessarily mean that I couldn't benefit from using an accessible bathroom stall or an accessible parking spot, right? So that's where society's sort of really making assumptions about people with disabilities. People could say, "I feel so sorry for you. I hope this never happens to me." So that's kind of, assuming again that disabled people have difficult lives, and I know that our board members certainly don't feel that way. I know I don't feel that way as an adult with a disability. With COVID, they could say, don't worry, it will only kill you if you have a pre-existing condition. Well, all of us with disabilities have pre-existing conditions, so that logic during this whole COVID experience is not the greatest thing to say to people. And then she's 20 years old, but only 12 years old mentally, right? And so again, that's really downplaying someone's value. And these are things that our youth in YASA have said they've heard and experienced themselves. So definitely want to change kind of these public perceptions.
Hey, this is Evan Shockley. I just wanted to hop in real quick and just bring up some of the chat that's been mentioned over the past couple minutes.
Sure.
Masha also wanted to just put in the other side note that please leave some topic ideas for our roundtable discussion for tomorrow. This way, Executive Youth Board can get discussion questions prepared. Also, Jacqueline McFarland said, will you drop the slides presentation into the chat or on the conference youth page? And I'm pretty sure that that will be accessible on the youth page by the end of the conference, but I'm sure we can put it into the chat as well.
Yes, we will make sure that we do that.
And then Kayla had one as well. Yes, I am always stared at. When I was younger, a preacher told my mom that I was disabled because of hers and my dad's sins, and they kicked the preacher out of the room.
Wow. That is, I have not heard that before. Thank you for sharing, Kayla, and Evan, thanks for jumping in. Rachel, is this you or is this me?
It's me. Thank you.
You're
So-
welcome.
Other ways that we've experienced ableism include in healthcare and educational settings, talking about a person with a disability talking to their caregiver instead of to the person who's right there. People offered solutions for disability. Oh, have you tried going gluten-free? Thank you, Karen. I haven't heard that one before. People will assume that somebody with a disability is dumb or say, oh, you don't look disabled. Another one is insisting on petting service animals. Can I pet your dog? No, this is my service animal. Oh, but I just want to pet it. The dog's working. Next slide, please.
So to use that as a little bit of a starter, we have the rest of our presentation is going to be a Q&A format. So again, I'll serve as the moderator, and we will hear from Ayanda first, and I'll play her video, and then you'll hear from Emily and Rachel as well. So the first question says, what do you think are some of the most unique circumstances in terms of accessing transportation in a rural area? So Ayanda said this.
So transportation in my rural community is very limited for people with wheelchairs. But once I transferred to college, I had more access to that. But that's one of my struggles with living in a rural community is transportation was like really limited. So I never got to go anywhere by myself. I always had to have my parents drive me everywhere because my van was the only vehicle that could accommodate me.
Perfect. Yeah, I think Ayanda's point is definitely something that many of us face. So next, Emily, do you have thoughts on how you navigated transportation in a rural setting?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Accessing transportation in the rural community can be tough. I'm in a wheelchair and I use public transportation to get to my college due to the fact that I don't have a handicapped accessible van to accommodate my power wheelchair. Using public transportation can be very unreliable, which isn't good when you have to get to class on time. It's good that the public transportation can provide door-to-door service, but I could be waiting 4 hours for the bus. And there's been times when the buses didn't even show up. A unique circumstance would be having to plan ahead so I get to where I need to be on time. Also, handicapped accessible buses are very limited in rural communities. So that is part of why I have to wait so long.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, no, I as a wheelchair user myself, I can certainly relate to being stuck on the or the having the transportation organization not show up on time. So I feel you on that. Rachel, what about you? Any thoughts on transportation in rural areas?
Yeah, so something that I'm aware of is that in the rural areas where I've lived, there aren't a lot of sidewalks, and there's also not a lot of public transportation available. So, for example, I went to college in Westminster McDaniel, which was a rural area, and the public transport didn't really go anywhere. Like, it wouldn't take me to the grocery store. It wouldn't take me anywhere that I wanted to go or needed to go in order to get my needs met. And if I wanted to like access the public transport, I typically would need to get into a car, which I did not have, in order to get to the public transportation, which is kind of inaccessible.
Thanks, Rachel. No, again, I love the points you guys are making, because I mean, it just shows, particularly in rural areas, again, how some elements can certainly be challenging. So, let me.
And Matthew, there are a couple of great comments in the chat area. Can I share those?
Please, Marcia, go right ahead.
Let me open this up again. There's so many things I have to scroll back up. A couple more people popped in since I looked last. So Grace, Grace was saying that the transportation people will only take me to medical appointments, and I feel that is ableist because it assumes we don't have social lives. Mm-hmm. It's actually linked to the money. The money is coming from Medicaid for your medical services, but I totally understand that. Jake Morris says that a lot of buses are city-based. And yes, Southeast ADA Center says, unfortunately, if Medicaid funds are paying for transportation, it only pays for medical related trips. There's a great conference session on Monday about a fantastic volunteer transportation system in Wisconsin. So I don't know if that was recorded, if you guys have access to it, but it's a model that you can take a look at and see if you might be able to initiate something like that in your own communities. And then Jordan Hayes says, I can relate to a Yonda situation for sure. And wheelchair accessible rideshare vehicles like Uber or Lyft aren't as available as the apps advertise. And Grace says, yes, but I would like to leave my apartment every once in a while.
Sure.
Yeah.
Marcia, thanks for jumping in the chat, and thank you all for your comments. Could not agree more. So our next question is, what are some of the unique circumstances you've experienced accessing education in a rural community? Again, first, we're going to hear from Ayanda.
During my first few years of elementary school, I had to receive rides from a bus to take me to another school that was out of my district because my mom wasn't exactly sure whether the school that was in my district could accommodate me and make sure that my needs were being addressed.
So Ayanda was out of her district, and so she had to go much further away. And so that was definitely a challenge for her. Emily, what about you? What kind of challenges did you face in accessing education?
A unique circumstance accessing education in a rural community was having to convince certain professionals in my high school that I was smart enough to go to college. Hearing that preconception made it difficult to believe that I was capable of going to college. I think that a big issue in rural communities is that professionals have this certain idea of what disabled people are capable of achieving due to lack of education and population. So when you go outside of that way of thinking, professionals don't like that very much.
Yes, it's always a challenge when even your professionals are kind of working against you, for sure. So thanks for sharing that, Emily. That was a very good point. Rachel, what about you? What kind of challenges did you have accessing education?
So for me, I went to college in a rural area, and the biggest issue that I had in college was actually accessing food. I have dietary restrictions, which mean that I'm gluten-free and dairy-free. And the people in the cafeteria, they were local staff, students from the college, and they didn't take it very seriously. So I had to get my own kitchen and cook for myself, which is all well and good, except I had transportation issues, so I couldn't go to the grocery store. And so I actually had to like make friends in order to go to the grocery store, which would be a lot easier if they understood disability. Yeah.
Well, Rachel, that's interesting, right? Because that ties back to it sort of ties both of the last two questions together, right? You were struggling academically because you couldn't eat right, and you couldn't get your food because you didn't have transportation. So you were kind of dealing with both situations. Marcia, I see a bunch of comments coming in the chat. I don't know if you want to share a couple of those.
Yeah, give me a second here to open them up.
You're fine.
We have a comment from Kayla. She says that the school system wanted me to go to a school that was not handicapped accessible, but my mom fought it and had to get a Senate in North Carolina involved. And he took him to call them to tell them that I was to still go there. Then shortly after, he got the school that was not handicapped accessible tore down and made them build one that was accessible.
Wow.
So that sounds like that was one big systems change. It wasn't just switching schools, Kayla. Awesome.
Let's see. Anything else, Marcia, or shall we move on?
You can move on. That looks good.
Perfect. So our next question is, let's see. Tell us about your employment experiences. So Ayanda did not have much experience with this yet, as she's still in school. So we're going to go right to Emily and get her to share her wonderful employment experiences.
I have had a few employment experiences. I have worked at a summer camp in an elementary school for kids who have disabilities. I am currently working for a self-advocacy group called TCASA. I am the youth coordinator. My job is to send out emails to the group members about upcoming meetings and various events. I also do presentations for YASA, such as this one.
Awesome, Emily, and you always do a wonderful job, for sure. You always have the best instinct. Rachel, what about you? I know you've done a lot of awesome stuff as well.
So sure. And actually, one of these kind of ties into the next question. So we'll get there. Let's go through this first.
Yes, please.
I started working after I graduated college in Iowa, which the place in Iowa where I was living would not technically be considered a rural area by Iowa's standards, but I'm originally from the East Coast. And so a city by Iowa's standard is a suburbs by my standards. And I just want to like share that because that's something that's worth acknowledging. So when I started working, I had college degrees. I started looking. Most of the job listings that were available, and this is a problem everywhere, but I think it's more pronounced in rural areas. Most of the job listings stated that they needed physical capabilities, like you need to be able to lift 50 pounds for an office job. Or like when I went to the temp website, like the local temp agency, all of them were factory jobs. I'm not quite a factory type person. I have chronic illness. I'm a big brain. That is not how I do. I want an office job and those just weren't available except for in the university, which was an hour away, which is like, that's kind of the state of things. So you needed to move away, which is harder because also as a disabled person, I've found that it's very important that I stay where my social support network is for situations where I maybe don't have the spoons to do the everyday things that I need to do to take care of myself. So I actually ended up staying there and I took a job where I worked for $7.25, which is minimum wage. Under the table, paid in store goods. And I actually saw somebody who came in every Friday to vacuum, who I was like, oh yes, you are also disabled. And it's also worth mentioning like sub minimum wage, because I suspect that person was getting sub minimum wage, getting paid less than the $7.25 that I was, which may explain why, the employment rates for disabled people are higher in the heartland America areas.
Gotcha. No, thank you for sharing that experience, Rachel. And I definitely am a huge advocate that we get rid of sub minimum wage for sure. For all three of you, what challenges do you have with accessing medical care in a rural community? Let me see. I think Ayanda had it. Yep. So first, we're going to hear Ayanda's experience on accessing medical care in a rural area.
So where I live in West Virginia, there aren't any hospitals that really accommodate my healthcare needs. So I have to go out of state to a hospital 2 hours away so that I can receive proper medical care.
And I think that is the story for most people, right? Is that oftentimes they have to go far, far away to receive their medical care. Has that been the same experience for you, Emily?
Not really. I would say my biggest challenge accessing medical care in a rural community is how there's a lack of telehealth options. Having virtual doctor's appointments when you're disabled is so much easier due to transportation difficulties. And with me, I wouldn't need anyone to accompany me if my doctor appointments were virtual, which means doctors would have to speak directly to me and not whoever is with me.
That's exactly right. And I think that's a huge benefit of this whole, honestly, this whole COVID experience, right? We've all been able to do virtual things. So that's a very good point. And I hope it's something that we keep around. Thanks for sharing, Emily. Rachel, what about you? What's been your experiences with healthcare in a rural setting?
So I actually don't feel comfortable speaking to this as I haven't had enough significant experience with healthcare in a rural setting.
Totally fine. And that's also a situation for many others as well. Sometimes we have the experience to draw on, sometimes we don't. Thanks for
We do,
pointing that out.
we do have a comment in the chat that I'd love to share there, Matthew.
Go for it, Marcia.
So Grace is sharing that she has a rare chronic illness and she has a lot of trouble finding specialists that she needs. Oh, Emily, she has the same voice on her AC device as you do. So she's getting confused. She's laughing. She has the little laugh emoji. That's good.
That's funny.
Yeah, and there were several people who also commented on the previous question, just saying that, you know, they were also employed. A couple of them are working at their Center for Independent Living, so they're finding it much more physically accessible for them, obviously. And I just wanted to make one note that the Southeast ADA Center said that private employers with 15 or more employees are required to provide accommodations for employees that are reasonable. That can include a physical site renovation, alterations that are needed for physical access. So just wanted to share those before we moved on. I thought those were pretty important.
That's great. And thank you everybody for all your comments. These are adding great elements to our presentation. So thank you so much. Let's see what's next. I think our last question, or I think we have two more. What are some issues that you face in trying to, or no, this is the last one, sorry. Trying to access cell phone and or broadband service in a rural setting? Let's see if, here is Ayanda's thoughts on having that access.
So where I live in West Virginia, the Wi-Fi is like the provider that I have is like they don't provide consistent Wi-Fi. So like some weeks we'll go without Wi-Fi or like days or weekends. So it's really hard for me to complete like school assignments. I have to go out of my house to complete the school assignments. And yeah, during where I live, there's a saying that we used to say. We have this certain provider that we used to make fun of because the service was so bad. And my dad has to commute for work, and he'll go to a certain area on his commute route, and there'll be like no self-service at all. So like if he's talking to like my mom or me on the phone would just go like dead because like there's no service. Yeah. So that's some of the problems that I have to deal with. And yeah.
And I think a lot of people living in rural spaces where, you know, internet and cell service can be challenging can relate to Ayanda's story. Emily, what are your thoughts?
Luckily, I don't have any issues with trying to access cell phone service where I live. We have pretty good service.
Good to know. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Rachel, any thoughts on this question from your end?
Yeah, so I actually worked for the better part of the past year online in a rural area. And when the internet was good, it was laggy. Something that I found from when I lived in Iowa was I actually really struggled because on the good day in Iowa, the internet was fickle. And on a bad day, it was not present, which I really struggled with because my primary social support was entirely online. And it's a little bit different when it takes you 30 minutes to open up an email. Versus when you need to talk to your friends and you're having a bad mental health day. One of these things lands different, and they both landed, but in the heat of the pandemic, and that's your only primary social support, kind of sucks more. So something else that I want to elevate is that in that area, there's only the one internet provider. There are no other internet providers. So we had the best internet that we could pay for. We would call them, we would complain, and they would do nothing because there's absolutely no competition. That's not quite ableism, but it hits different when you're disabled. That's a larger systemic issue that we need to address as a country. But what is ableist is how everybody is coming back in to work. And that's something that, as somebody with multiple chronic conditions, is not necessarily safe, and how that is negatively impacting my workflow, and how the accommodations that were put in place when everybody needs them are kind of going away because everybody wants to get back to normal, even if that's not necessarily the safe, smart thing to do.
So
Great points there, Rachel, and I couldn't agree more with your viewpoints on keeping the virtual work world kind of as it is, because I know for me it's also made my world more accessible and allowed me to continue working as well. So thank you all for answering those questions. Marcia, any comments on that question in the chat?
Yeah, we got a couple really good ones I think we should definitely share today before we move on. One is from, again, the Southeast ADA Center, saying that the lack of broadband and self-service has been a big issue for many children who have had to do online school when COVID first started and schools closed. And then Kayla said, yes, I have CenturyLink, and we joke around and say maybe Link because maybe you have internet and maybe you don't, LOL. I live out in the country and I'm hoping we can get another internet service. So that's obviously a very common problem.
Sure, thanks, Marcia. Rachel, were these Luke slides? Do you remember?
Yes.
All right, so we are working to we're asking for you to help us crush ableism, right? Don't accuse somebody with a disability that they're faking. Never touch a person with a disability or their mobility equipment without consent. Keep invasive questions to yourself. Speak directly to the person with the disability and not their interpreter and or their companion that they may be with. And then people with disabilities need to create their own media to tell their own stories.
And the next slide, I believe, is Emily's.
Gotcha.
So actually, I'm going to go back to repeating this because I know Emily doesn't have all of this in her AAC device, and I want to give her time. So I'll read this slide, and then we'll go back to it. So Emily, you can read that final slide. So first off, we learn how minority groups experience ableism, educate children and youth about how disability is natural. Emily.
Always incorporate accessibility when planning events.
We make sure people with disabilities are at the table when decisions are being made.
Yeah. Yes, just to repeat in case everyone didn't hear, Emily said incorporate universal design in all of your architecture and design areas. Thanks guys for alternating those. To wrap us up, we obviously certainly want to leave time for some Q&A if people have questions for our youth. Again, like I said in the beginning, we're looking for more youth to join our board. So we definitely encourage people to go to our website, as you see here, familyvoices.org/YASA, and find our application page if you know of a young person who would like to be part of our organization. Please also follow us on all of the social media platforms that you see there. And our phone number is also there. So if you have questions or want to continue the conversation, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And with that, we would love to see if anyone has any questions, and thank you for your time and attention.
And take some, not so much pictures, but like help with the healthcare transition about database. I put it together and stuff, and I put it.
Does anybody have any questions?
Put all that information together and social media.
I'm looking in the chat right now, Matthew, and there were a couple of comments I'll share while people are thinking about their questions. Shockley was telling us that Internet Essentials is a good resource to those that do have access to internet but are looking for a cheaper option. And in the chat, you will find the internetessentials.com URL that you can click on to find more information.
Okay.
And let's see. And again, affirmation from the Southeast ADA Center, absolutely, to educate children with disabilities. Don't slush children's questions, allow them to ask a person with a disability questions that they may have. And thank you, Rachel, for posting our URL in the chat so people can get access to that right away. And again, the ADA Center says, I took my children to my jobs that have always been in the disability field. They both now work with people with disabilities. Okay, let's go check the Q&A and see if there's anything there.
So something that I want to talk about, because we didn't get to talk about it in the presentation and we're waiting for everyone to come up with questions, is there's also like disability erasure, and that is ableist as well. So like erasing disability for environments, and that, you know, the whole disability nuance, if you don't look disabled, that is ableist too. And like there's a different kind of ableism for if you look disabled versus not looking disabled, even though, you know, disability is not how you appear. It's about, well, being different with your body and your mind. So I just wanted to share that.
Thanks, Rachel. No, that's an awesome point. And so yeah. Any closing thoughts from Rachel or Emily? Unfortunately, again, Ayanda couldn't be here with us today, but glad we were able to hear her perspectives as well. And Emily, if it'll take you a minute, we can have Rachel go first if you have any closing thoughts or anything, Rachel.
Yeah, so something that I've also seen throughout the chat, throughout this panel, is there are some stories that have been shared, some incidences that have been shared. And luckily, in a lot of them, somebody's been able to step in and make a difference and go, hey, this is not how things should happen. What we're saying here is that you shouldn't have to have somebody step in. The systems should work for you. You shouldn't need to call the senator, for example. And something that as a disabled person, I walk through the world knowing is that I'm going to need somebody else on speed dial to say, Rachel has human rights and you need to follow through on them. You need to give her access. And so what we're talking about here is inviting curiosity for everyone to just sort of be cool with the world as it is. And maybe that's not, questioning things about why are you like that? Maybe that's just being open with the person that you're with. And maybe that's if you aren't open or if you want to learn more, doing your own research. And so that way you can be compassionate in that moment and sort of de-alienate people, because ableism tells us that disabled people are less than people, or they're not fully people, or they need to be separated. I invite you to start undoing that belief that you may have within yourself. And for those of us who are also disabled, I got it too, man, and you might as well. So give yourself compassion and kindness. You deserve it.
Thanks so much, Rachel. I know Matthew's answering a question in the Q&A right now. I can see that he's typing it. So hold on just a second. You guys are great at interacting today and providing some extra input here to paint a really clear picture about what's going on in rural communities around ableism. I see in the chat, we have another comment from the Southeast ADA Center saying, unfortunately, we are still a long way from not having to call a senator sometimes in order to make a change for access and inclusion. And that is so true. And it'll be really nice when the day comes that we don't have to pick up our phone and do that or storm into their office.
Sure. And Marcia, thank you for jumping in. I was answering that question in the chat, so thanks for your help. Emily, do you have any closing thoughts that you wanted to share?
Yeah. I think that it's important to have panels like this because ableism is not in the front of everyone's minds.
Very, very true. And it's important to continue to talk about it. So I couldn't agree more, Emily. That's perfect. And Marcia, I see some other comments in the chat, just with some other really good ideas. So I'll let you take those.
You bet. So Jordan Hayes is saying, Rachel, I love that you were talking about the nuances in disability and holding space to celebrate advocacy victories while also recognizing that the need for ongoing advocacy from others can be majorly disheartening. And the Southeast ADA Center says we need schools to include a disability curriculum. Amen to that one.
I'm actually gonna respond to that one directly because I do work in education and that's something that I'm working on right now. I actually don't think that we need a curriculum. I think that what we need to do is we need to make access available to all, regardless of diagnosis, regardless of education, because disability is normal. It is natural. It is just a part of life. Bodies change. And that is going to, like, being open and real with the people who are in the moment, in the space, that's what it's going to take. And I do agree that, many of the older advocates are no longer with us. It's about like being present and curious with who's in the room. That there's a human piece that we don't make space for. We don't make space for that piece. And if we don't make space for humanity, people stop bringing it to the table.
Yes, well said, Rachel. Thank you so much. Again, I was answering another question in the chat, so thank y'all for your patience. And that really puts us right up against time. So, you know, we're so honored to be able to present this for you all, and I know our youth love sharing their perspective. So, thank you for having us, and we'd love to continue to hear from you all or help in any way that we can. So, thank you so much.
Definitely. Thank you guys so much. And this is Evan, just with one final thing. Hope you guys can fill out the survey at the end of this. It will pop up automatically, or at least by the end of the week at your own ado. So please give that back. That's good feedback for us, April, as well as YASA, and everything that they're doing over there can help them understand how they can be even more accessible to people. So thank you guys for joining today, and we'll
5
see you next
o'clock.
time.
Emily, Rachel, good job. Thank you guys for doing that. You did great.
Thank you, Matthew, for stepping in as the pinch presenter and
And that was,
moderator.
I don't want to do all of those things all at once ever again. But I hope you guys have a good rest of the day. Great job. Really proud of y'all.
Thank you. Farewell.
Get out of here. Ooh, close. Stop share.